I sit in the marble lobby of First National Bank of Denver on a cold February morning, my army dress uniform still crisp from yesterday's homecoming ceremony. The familiar weight of my service ribbons feels heavier today, earned through 3 deployments that kept me away from home for 4 years. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, snow falls steadily on 17th Street, blanketing the city in pristine white that matches my growing confusion. "Miss Rodriguez," the bank manager says, sliding a manila folder across his polished desk, "I'm afraid there's been some unusual activity on your trust account." David Chen's voice carries the careful neutrality of someone delivering bad news professionally. His wire-rimmed glasses reflect the fluorescent lights as he opens the folder with practiced precision. The trust fund my grandmother established before her death should contain $127,000, accumulated from her life insurance policy and the sale of her Phoenix home. Money meant to secure me future after Milita Rye service. A foundation for the veterinary practice I've dreamed of since his childhood. Instead, the balance sheet shows 3,247. "That can't be right," I whisper, my throat suddenly dry. The numbers blur as I stare at the page, trying to make sense of withdrawal after withdrawal, each one authorized by someone with power of attorney. My Uncle Marcus, who promised to watch over my finances while I served overseas. David slides another document toward me. "These are the authorization forms filed 3 years ago. Your uncle claimed you needed emergency funds for medical expenses while deployed." His finger traces a signature that looks nothing like my careful handwriting. "We tried to contact you through military channels, but the address on file was outdated." The room tilts sideways as I realize the scope of what's happened. While I was dodging IEDs in Afghanistan, Marcus was systematically draining the money my grandmother died, believing would secure my future. Every month for 3 years, withdrawals ranging from $2,000 to $8,000, each one documented with forged authorizations. "I never signed any of these," I say, my voice stronger now, trained by years of giving orders under pressure. "I was stationed at Bagram Air Base. My APO address never changed." The military precision that kept me alive overseas kicks in, organizing thoughts into actionable intelligence. David nods grimly. "We suspected fraud, but without your direct contact, our hands were tied. Your uncle provided documentation claiming you were in a classified location with limited communication." He pulls out another folder. There's more. He also opened 3 credit cards using your social security number and military ID. The betrayal cuts deeper than any physical wound I've sustained. Marcus, who taught me to drive stick shift in his old Chevy, who attended my high school graduation when my parents couldn't afford the trip from Tucson. The man who cried at my deployment ceremony, promising to take care of everything until I returned home safely. Where is he now? I ask, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. Military training taught me to channel anger into strategy, emotion into action. That's the problem, David says carefully. He's claiming the withdrawals were legitimate, authorized by you via encrypted military communications. He's produced what appears to be email correspondence between you two discussing financial needs. I pull out my phone, scrolling through 4 years of actual emails with Marcus. Cheerful updates about his construction business, questions about my safety, promises to keep my finances secure. Nothing about withdrawals, medical emergencies, or financial authorizations. The contrast between his caring messages and his systematic theft creates a cognitive dissonance that makes my head spin. I need copies of everything, I tell David, my voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Every withdrawal, every authorization, every piece of documentation he provided. The banker nods, already reaching for his printer. 20 minutes later, I sit in my rental car outside the bank, staring at a stack of evidence that chronicles my uncle's betrayal. My phone buzzes with a text from my sister Elena. Welcome home. Marcus is throwing you a surprise party tonight at his house. Can't wait to see you. The irony is suffocating. A welcome home party hosted by the man who stole my future. I dial Elena's number, my fingers trembling slightly as the adrenaline from the bank meeting begins to fade. Maya. Elena's voice bubbles with excitement. You're finally home. Marcus has been planning this party for weeks. He's so proud of you. Keeps telling everyone about his war hero niece. Elena, I interrupt, my voice carefully controlled. I need to ask you something. Did Marcus ever mention me having medical problems while deployed? Emergency expenses? Medical problems? No. Why would he? You never mentioned anything in your letters. Her voice shifts, concern creeping in. Maya, what's wrong? You sound strange. I close my eyes, gathering courage for what comes next. Marcus stole my trust fund, all of it. While I was deployed, he forged documents and drained the account grandmother left me. Silence stretches between us, broken only by the sound of Denver traffic and my sister's sharp intake of breath. That's impossible, she finally whispers. Marcus loves you. He talks about you constantly, shows everyone your pictures in uniform. Elena, I'm looking at bank records right now. 124,000 stolen over 3 years. Forged signatures, fake medical emergencies, fraudulent power of attorney documents. My voice breaks slightly on the numbers, the magnitude of the theft hitting me again. But he helped pay for my wedding last year, Elena protests, her voice small and confused. He said business was good, that the construction contracts were finally paying off. The pieces click into place with sickening clarity. Marcus's sudden generosity, his upgraded truck, the new house he bought in the suburbs, all funded with money my grandmother intended for my veterinary school, my future, my dreams. Elena, I need you to cancel the party. Don't tell him why, just make up an excuse. I need time to figure out how to handle this. I lean my forehead against the steering wheel, exhaustion replacing anger. Maya, maybe there's an explanation. Maybe grandmother gave him permission before she died. Or maybe the bank made a mistake. Elena's voice carries desperate hope. The same tone she used as a child when trying to convince our parents that broken dishes had fallen by themselves. The bank has forged signatures. Elena, documents claiming I authorized emergency medical withdrawals while I was in combat. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's systematic fraud. The words taste bitter in my mouth. Each syllable an admission that the family I trusted betrayed me. After hanging up, I drive through Denver's snowy streets, muscle memory guiding me toward the modest apartment I rented online before my discharge. The city looks different through the lens of betrayal, familiar landmarks now seeming foreign and unwelcoming. At my apartment, I spread the bank documents across my kitchen table like intelligence reports, analyzing patterns and timelines. The first withdrawal occurred just 2 weeks after my deployment, suggesting Marcus had planned this from the beginning. Each subsequent theft was carefully timed to avoid detection. Amounts varied to prevent automatic fraud alerts. My phone rings. Marcus's name appears on the screen and my stomach lurches. For a moment, I consider letting it go to voicemail, but military training demands facing threats directly. Maya, welcome home, sweetheart. His voice booms with false enthusiasm. Elena told me you're feeling under the weather, but I thought maybe we could grab dinner instead. I've missed you so much. Uncle Marcus, I say, testing his reaction. I went to the bank today to check on my trust fund. The silence stretches for 3 heartbeats too long. Oh, that's great. I'm sure you're excited to see how well it's grown. Your grandmother would be so proud of how responsible you've been with money. The audacity of his lie steals my breath. Marcus, the account has $3,247 in it. Where's the rest of my money? What? That can't be right. Let me call David Chen tomorrow. There must be some kind of error. His voice carries practiced confusion, the tone of someone who's rehearsed this conversation. You know how banks are with their computer systems. Marcus, I have the withdrawal records. Every single one. Forged signatures, fake medical emergencies, fraudulent authorizations. All while I was deployed. My voice remains steady, but my hands shake with suppressed rage. Another pause, longer this time. When he speaks again, his voice has changed, the warm uncle replaced by something colder. Maya, you've been through a lot overseas. Combat stress can affect memory, perception. Maybe you authorized those withdrawals and forgot. The gaslighting attempt triggers something primal in me, the same instinct that kept me alive during firefights. I have 4 years of email correspondence with you, Marcus. Not once did we discuss withdrawals, medical emergencies, or financial authorizations. Not once. Prove it, he says, his voice now openly hostile. Prove I did anything wrong. You think anyone's going to believe a soldier with PTSD over a respected businessman who's lived in this community for 30 years? The line goes dead, leaving me staring at my phone in the sudden silence of my empty apartment. The man who taught me to ride a bike just threatened me, dismissed my military service as mental illness, and challenged me to prove his crimes. I call my sister back. Elena, I just talked to Marcus. He denied everything and told me to prove it. Maya, I canceled the party like you asked, but people are asking questions. Marcus seems really upset, keeps saying you're confused from deployment stress. Elena's voice wavers between loyalty to me and years of trusting Marcus. Did he ever mention having financial problems? Gambling debts, business troubles, anything? I ask, already suspecting the answer. Actually, yes. About 3 years ago, he mentioned some construction contracts falling through. But then things seemed to turn around quickly. Elena pauses. Oh God, Maya, 3 years ago. That's when you deployed. The timeline confirms what I already know. Marcus's financial recovery coincided exactly with his systematic theft of my inheritance. While I was serving my country, he was funding his lifestyle with my future. That evening, I researched fraud attorneys in Denver, reading reviews and case histories until my eyes burn. Military legal assistance is available, but this requires civilian expertise, someone who understands complex financial crimes and family betrayal. I find Sarah Martinez, a former prosecutor who specializes in identity theft and financial fraud. Her website features testimonials from clients who've recovered stolen assets from family members, employers, and financial institutions. Her approach combines aggressive legal action with victim advocacy, exactly what I need. The next morning, I sit in Sarah's downtown office, watching her review the bank documents with the focused intensity of a sniper acquiring targets. Her office walls display framed court victories and legal certifications, evidence of battles won against financial predators. This is textbook family identity theft, Sarah says, making notes on a legal pad. The forged signatures, the fake medical emergencies, the systematic timing to avoid detection. Your uncle is experienced at this. Experienced? I ask, though I'm beginning to suspect Marcus's crimes extend beyond my trust fund. Sarah pulls out another file. I ran a background check. Your uncle has been involved in 3 previous financial disputes, all settled privately. 2 involved elderly relatives, 1 involved a business partner who died in an accident. The revelation hits like incoming artillery. Marcus isn't just a desperate man who made a bad decision. He's a predator who targets vulnerable family members. My deployment made me the perfect victim, isolated and unable to monitor my finances. What are our options? I ask, falling back on military directness. Criminal charges for identity theft, bank fraud, and elder abuse since he started this pattern with your grandmother's money. Civil action for full restitution plus damages, and we freeze his assets immediately to prevent him from hiding money offshore. Sarah's confidence reminds me of the best officers I served under, people who combined strategic thinking with decisive action. How long will this take? 6 months to a year for full resolution, but we can get emergency asset freezes within days. The key is moving fast before he realizes how much evidence we have. I spend the afternoon at Sarah's office, signing affidavits and authorizations. building the legal framework for justice. Each document feels like loading ammunition, preparing for a different kind of combat than I'm used to, but warfare nonetheless. That evening, Elena calls, her voice tight with anxiety. "Maya, Marcus came by my house today. He seemed really agitated, kept asking if you'd said anything specific about the trust fund. He wanted to know if you'd hired a lawyer." "What did you tell him?" I ask, already knowing Marcus is preparing his defenses. "I told him I didn't know anything, that you just seemed confused about the account balance. But Maya, he scared me. He wasn't the uncle we grew up with. His eyes were different, cold. The predator is showing his true face now that his victim has returned and begun asking questions. Elena, I need you to stay away from Marcus until this is resolved. Don't answer his calls. Don't let him in your house. You really think he's dangerous?" Elena's voice carries the fear of someone realizing they've been living next to a stranger. "I think he's desperate, and desperate people do unpredictable things. Just be careful." I hang up and immediately call Sarah, reporting Marcus's behavior as potential witness intimidation. 2 days later, Sarah calls with an update. "We've frozen all of Marcus's accounts pending investigation. He's retained Jonathan Walsh, one of the most expensive criminal defense attorneys in Colorado. That tells us he's taking this seriously." "Good," I reply, surprising myself with the satisfaction in my voice. He should be scared. The legal machinery moves with impressive efficiency. Within a week, Marcus receives notification of the criminal complaint, the civil lawsuit, and the asset freeze. His construction business accounts are locked, his personal savings inaccessible, his new house subject to potential seizure. Elena reports that Marcus has been calling family members, claiming I've suffered a mental breakdown and am making false accusations. Some relatives believe him. Others remain neutral, waiting to see how events unfold. The family fractures along predictable lines, those who benefit from Marcus's generosity supporting him, those who've always been suspicious finally speaking up. My cousin Roberto calls from Phoenix. "Maya, I'm glad you're finally doing something about Marcus. He tried the same thing with my mom's estate 5 years ago, but we caught him early." "Why didn't anyone warn me?" I ask, though I already know the answer. "We tried to tell your grandmother, but she said Marcus was just helping with paperwork. Family loyalty runs deep, you know? People don't want to believe someone they trust is stealing from them." The pattern becomes clearer with each conversation. Marcus has been targeting vulnerable family members for years, using his reputation as a helpful relative to gain access to their finances. My deployment made me the perfect victim, unable to monitor my accounts or respond to warning signs. 3 weeks after filing charges, I receive a call from Detective Lisa Park with the Denver Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit. "Miss Rodriguez, we've completed our initial investigation. Your uncle's financial records show a clear pattern of fraud, not just with your account, but with at least 2 other family members." "Other family members?" I ask, though I'm no longer surprised by Marcus's expanding crimes. "Your great-aunt Carmen's estate and your cousin Miguel's disability settlement. Both show similar patterns of forged documents and unauthorized withdrawals. We're expanding the investigation. The scope of Marcus's crimes grows with each revelation. He's not just a man who made a desperate mistake. He's a career criminal who's been systematically stealing from family members for years." My case has opened a door that reveals a much larger pattern of abuse. Sarah calls that afternoon with more news. Marcus's attorney contacted me about a plea agreement. He's willing to admit to unauthorized access to your account in exchange for reduced charges and a payment plan for restitution. "Absolutely not," I reply without hesitation. "He stole $124,000 and threatened me when I confronted him." "He gets no deals." "I was hoping you'd say that." The prosecutor agrees. With the evidence we have and the pattern of abuse with other family members, they want to make an example of this case. The preliminary hearing takes place in a sterile courtroom that smells of floor wax and nervous sweat. Marcus sits at the defendant's table in an expensive suit, his silver hair perfectly styled, playing the role of a respectable businessman wrongly accused. His attorney, Jonathan Walsh, projects confidence and indignation, setting the stage for a defense based on misunderstanding and family miscommunication. I sit in the gallery wearing my army dress uniform, my service ribbons and combat badges telling a story of sacrifice and honor that contrasts sharply with Marcus's narrative of confusion and mental illness. When our eyes meet across the courtroom, I see no trace of the uncle who taught me to drive, only a stranger calculating his next move. The prosecutor, Amanda Foster, presents our evidence with methodical precision. Bank records showing systematic withdrawals, handwriting analysis proving forged signatures, email correspondence demonstrating Marcus's deception. Each piece of evidence builds an unassailable case of premeditated fraud. Marcus's attorney argues that the withdrawals were authorized through verbal agreements, that my deployment stress has affected my memory, that family financial arrangements are often informal and misunderstood. His performance is polished but hollow, lacking the weight of evidence. When I testify, I speak directly to the judge, my voice steady and clear. Your Honor, while I was serving my country in Afghanistan, my uncle systematically stole the money my grandmother left to secure my future. He forged my signature, fabricated medical emergencies, and lied to bank officials. When I confronted him, he told me to prove it and suggested I was mentally ill. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, listens intently as I describe the impact of Marcus's crimes. This wasn't just theft of money, Your Honor. It was theft of trust, of family bonds, of the security my grandmother died believing she'd provided for me. Marcus's attorney cross-examines me, trying to establish that deployment stress has affected my judgment, that family financial arrangements are often misunderstood, that my uncle's intentions were good even if his methods were flawed. His questions feel like enemy fire, designed to wound and disorient. Sergeant Rodriguez, he says, emphasizing my military rank, isn't it possible that the stress of combat has affected your memory of conversations with my client? No, sir, I reply, meeting his gaze directly. Combat taught me to pay attention to details, to document everything, to trust evidence over assumptions. The evidence shows your client is a thief. The hearing concludes with the judge ordering Marcus to stand trial on charges of identity theft, bank fraud, and elder abuse. Bail is set at $50,000, which Marcus posts immediately, suggesting he has access to funds not frozen by our asset seizure. Outside the courthouse, Marcus approaches me as I walk to my car. Maya, this has gone far enough. We're family. We can work this out privately. We stopped being family when you stole my inheritance, I reply, not breaking stride. See you at trial. You're making a mistake, he calls after me, his voice carrying a threat that makes my skin crawl. This will destroy our whole family. Is your pride worth that? I turn back to face him, drawing on 4 years of combat experience to project calm authority. My pride isn't on trial here, Marcus. Your crimes are. The months leading to trial pass in a blur of depositions, evidence gathering, and family drama. Some relatives support me, others maintain loyalty to Marcus, and a few try to play peacemaker, suggesting we settle privately to preserve family unity. My cousin Elena struggles the most, torn between her love for me and her gratitude to Marcus for helping with her wedding. Maybe he really thought he was helping, she suggests during one of our increasingly strained conversations. Maybe he planned to pay it back before you returned. Elena, he stole $124,000 over 3 years and lied about it when confronted. There's no innocent explanation for that level of deception. I try to keep frustration out of my voice, but the family's willingness to excuse Marcus's crimes wears at my patience. Sarah's investigation uncovers more evidence of Marcus's pattern of financial abuse. Bank records show he's been targeting elderly and vulnerable family members for over a decade, using his reputation as a helpful relative to gain access to their finances. Your case is the tip of the iceberg, Sarah tells me during one of our preparation sessions. We've identified at least 6 other victims, but most are deceased or too intimidated to come forward. The trial begins on a cold Monday in November, exactly 9 months after my return from deployment. The courtroom fills with family members, reporters, and curious observers drawn by the unusual nature of the case. Military veteran versus trusted uncle, service and sacrifice versus greed and betrayal. Prosecutor Amanda Foster opens with a clear narrative. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about trust betrayed and service dishonored. While Sergeant Maya Rodriguez was serving her country in Afghanistan, risking her life for our freedom, her uncle was systematically stealing the money her grandmother left to secure her future. Marcus's attorney, Jonathan Walsh, counters with a story of family misunderstanding and good intentions gone wrong. My client made mistakes, yes, but his heart was in the right place. He was trying to help his niece manage her finances while she was deployed. And miscommunications led to this unfortunate situation. The prosecution's case unfolds like a military operation, each piece of evidence precisely placed to build an overwhelming case. Bank officials testify about the forged signatures, handwriting experts confirm the fraud, and financial investigators trace the stolen money through Marcus's accounts. The most damaging evidence comes from Marcus's own records. Sarah's team discovered a notebook in his home office detailing his various family members' financial situations, including notes about my deployment schedule and grandmother's estate. The notebook reads like a predator's hunting guide, identifying vulnerable targets and planning strategies for exploitation. When Marcus takes the stand in his own defense, his performance is polished but unconvincing. He claims the withdrawals were authorized through phone conversations that conveniently left no records, that he was helping me manage financial emergencies that I've somehow forgotten. I love my niece, he tells the jury, his voice breaking with practiced emotion. Everything I did was to help her. If I made mistakes with paperwork, I'm sorry, but my intentions were pure. Sarah's cross-examination dismantles his story piece by piece. Mr. Rodriguez, if these withdrawals were authorized by your niece, why did you forge her signature on the authorization forms? I didn't forge anything. Those are legitimate signatures. According to 3 handwriting experts, these signatures don't match your niece's authentic writing. How do you explain that? Marcus's composure cracks slightly. Handwriting can change over time, especially under stress. Mr. Rodriguez, your niece was deployed to a combat zone. If she was experiencing medical emergencies requiring thousands of dollars, wouldn't the military have records of these incidents? Not necessarily. Some things are classified. Sarah produces my complete medical records from deployment, showing no emergencies, no unusual expenses, no medical issues requiring financial assistance. Marcus's lies crumble under the weight of documented evidence. The jury deliberates for less than 2 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all charges. Marcus's face goes pale as the foreman reads each verdict, his carefully constructed facade finally collapsing completely. Judge Harrison sentences Marcus to 5 years in federal prison and orders full restitution of $124,000 plus damages and legal fees. The sentence sends a clear message that financial crimes against military families will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. After the sentencing, I stand outside the courthouse with Sarah, watching Marcus being led away in handcuffs. The snow has started falling again, covering the city in fresh white that makes everything look clean and new. How do you feel? Sarah asks, her voice gentle after months of legal combat. Free, I reply, surprising myself with the simplicity of the answer. For the first time since coming home, I feel free. The restitution process takes several more months, but eventually my trust fund is restored with interest and damages. Marcus's house is sold, his business assets liquidated, his retirement accounts seized to pay his debts to multiple family members. I use part of the recovered money to establish a legal defense fund for military families facing financial crimes, working with Sarah to provide resources and support for other victims of family fraud. The fund helps 3 families in its first year, proving that Marcus's crimes, while devastating, have led to something positive. Elena and I slowly rebuild our relationship, though it's different now, tempered by her initial willingness to believe Marcus over me. Some family relationships survive the trial, others don't, and I learn to accept that truth sometimes fractures families that were already broken. A year after the trial, I'm accepted to veterinary school at Colorado State University, my grandmother's dream for me finally within reach. The first tuition payment comes from the restored trust fund, money that carries her love across the years, despite Marcus's attempt to steal it. I keep Marcus's notebook as a reminder of how predators operate, how they use family loyalty as a weapon, how they target the vulnerable and isolated. Sometimes I show it to other veterans who've experienced financial abuse, helping them understand that they're not alone, that justice is possible. The veterinary clinic I eventually open specializes in treating service animals, a way of honoring both my military service and my grandmother's legacy. The waiting room displays a plaque, in memory of Rosa Rodriguez, who believed in securing the future for those we love. Marcus serves 3 years of his 5-year sentence before being released on parole. He moves to another state, his reputation in Colorado destroyed by the trial coverage. We have no contact, and I prefer it that way. Some bridges, once burned by betrayal, should never be rebuilt. The trust fund my grandmother established continues to grow, now managed by a professional firm with strict oversight. Part of it funds my education, part supports the legal defense fund, and part remains invested for the future she envisioned for me. On quiet evenings at the clinic, when the last patient has been treated and the staff has gone home, I sometimes think about the moment in that bank lobby when I first learned of Marcus's betrayal. The shock and pain have faded, replaced by something stronger. The knowledge that I fought back, that I refused to let family loyalty enable criminal behavior, that I chose justice over false peace. The snow still falls on Denver winters, covering the city in fresh white that makes everything look clean and new. But now I see it differently, not as a blanket hiding ugly truths, but as proof that even after the darkest storms, the world can be made clean again. Some family ties are meant to be broken so that something healthier can grow in their place. My grandmother's love survived Marcus's theft. My military training gave me strength to fight back, and justice, though delayed, eventually prevailed. The trust fund she left me was never just about money. It was about believing in my future, about providing security and opportunity, about love that transcends death. Marcus stole the money temporarily, but he could never steal what it represented, a grandmother's faith in her granddaughter's potential. That faith, tested by betrayal and strengthened by justice, now funds not just my dreams, but the dreams of other military families facing similar crimes. From the ashes of Marcus's theft, something larger and more meaningful has grown, proving that even the deepest betrayals can lead to unexpected victories. The war I fought overseas prepared me for the battle I faced at home. Both required courage, strategy, and the willingness to stand up to those who would harm the innocent. Both taught me that justice, though sometimes delayed, is always worth fighting for. In the end, Marcus's challenge to prove it became the foundation of his downfall. I proved it in court, with evidence and witnesses and the full weight of the law. I proved that family loyalty has limits, that love doesn't excuse crime, that trust, once broken, must be earned back through actions, not words. The trust fund my grandmother left me has become something she never imagined, a weapon against financial predators, a shield for vulnerable families, a beacon of hope for those who've been betrayed by people they trusted. Her legacy lives on, not just in the money she saved, but in the justice it helped secure and the protection it now provides for others. The morning I receive my veterinary degree, I drive to the cemetery where my grandmother is buried. The headstone reads, Rosa Elena Rodriguez, beloved mother and grandmother, her love lives on. I place my diploma against the marble, the morning sun warming both the stone and my face. We did it. Abuela, I whisper, my voice carrying across the quiet cemetery. The money you saved, the dreams you had for me, Marcus couldn't steal them after all. A gentle breeze rustles the oak trees overhead, and for a moment I feel her presence as strongly as I did during childhood visits to her Phoenix home. The veterinary clinic I'm opening next month will be called Rosa's Animal Hospital, honoring both her memory and the trust fund that made it possible. The building sits on the outskirts of Denver, a converted warehouse with large windows and plenty of space for the specialized equipment needed to treat service animals and working dogs. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, my mentor from veterinary school, helps me install the digital X-ray machine that will allow us to provide advanced care for injured military and police dogs. You know, she says, adjusting the calibration settings, when you first told me about your uncle's theft, I wondered if you'd ever trust anyone again. But look at this place. It's built on trust, on helping others. The irony isn't lost on me. Marcus's betrayal taught me to be more careful with trust, but it also showed me the importance of fighting for justice, of protecting the vulnerable, of turning pain into purpose. The legal defense fund I established has now helped 12 military families recover stolen assets, with Sarah Martinez leading the legal team pro bono. My phone buzzes with a text from Elena. Saw the news story about your clinic opening. Mom would be so proud. Marcus called yesterday asking if we'd heard from you. I delete the message without responding. Some conversations aren't worth having. Marcus has been out of prison for 6 months now, living in a halfway house in Phoenix and working construction for minimum wage. His parole officer contacts me occasionally with updates, part of the restitution monitoring process. He's required to pay $500 monthly toward the remaining legal fees until his debt is fully satisfied. The grand opening of Rosa's Animal Hospital draws a crowd that surprises me. Local veterans, police officers, military families, and neighbors from the surrounding area come to tour the facility and meet the staff. Mayor Patricia Hendricks cuts the ribbon, praising the clinic's mission to serve those who serve others. This facility represents more than veterinary care, she tells the gathered crowd. It represents resilience, the triumph of good over evil, and the power of turning personal tragedy into community benefit. The applause feels warm and genuine, a stark contrast to the cold silence of that courthouse where Marcus was sentenced. Dr. Sarah Chen, a recent graduate who specializes in trauma rehabilitation for working animals, joins me as our first associate veterinarian. Her background includes work with military dogs suffering from PTSD, a specialty that aligns perfectly with our mission. I've been following your story since the trial, she tells me during her interview. What you've built here, it's exactly what the community needs. Our first patient is Rex, a German shepherd who served 3 tours in Afghanistan before retiring with his handler, Sergeant First Class David Morrison. Rex suffers from anxiety and joint problems, common issues for military working dogs. As I examine him, I see something of my own journey reflected in his cautious eyes. The wariness that comes from experiencing betrayal, the slow process of learning to trust again. He's been through a lot, David explains, his hand gentle on Rex's head. IED explosion damaged his hearing, and he's been skittish around strangers ever since. The VA referred us here because they said, "You understand military trauma." Working with Rex over the following months becomes a form of therapy for both of us. His gradual recovery mirrors my own healing process, slow, sometimes setback-prone, but ultimately successful. The trust he eventually shows me feels like a small miracle, proof that even the deepest wounds can heal with patience and proper care. The Legal Defense Fund continues to grow, now supporting cases across 3 states. Sarah Martinez has taken on 2 high-profile family fraud cases, using the precedent established by my case to secure stronger sentences for financial predators who target military families. Your willingness to fight back publicly has changed how prosecutors approach these cases, she tells me during our quarterly fund meeting. One evening, as I'm closing the clinic, I find an envelope slipped under the front door. Inside is a handwritten letter from Marcus, postmarked from Phoenix. My hands tremble slightly as I unfold the pages. Memories of his threats and manipulation flooding back. "Maya," the letter begins. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. Prison gave me time to think about what I did, about how I justified stealing from you while you were serving our country. There's no excuse for what I did. I was desperate, drowning in gambling debts, and I convinced myself that I'd pay it back before you returned. But that's not the truth. The truth is, I was selfish and weak, and I hurt the person who trusted me most." I set the letter down, my heart racing with a mixture of anger and unexpected emotion. Part of me wants to tear it up, to refuse his attempt at redemption. But another part, the part trained in military discipline and justice, knows that healing sometimes requires facing uncomfortable truths. The letter continues, "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that seeing what you've built with Rosa's Animal Hospital, reading about the legal fund helping other families, it makes me proud of who you've become, even though I had nothing to do with it. You took the worst thing I could do to you and turned it into something beautiful. That's who you are, Maya. That's who you've always been." I fold the letter and place it in my desk drawer, unsure how to process this unexpected vulnerability from the man who nearly destroyed my future. Forgiveness feels premature, but acknowledgement of his words doesn't require absolution of his crimes. Dr. Chen finds me sitting in my office an hour later, staring out the window at the Denver skyline. "Everything okay?" she asks, her voice gentle with concern. "My uncle wrote me a letter," I say, surprised by how easily the words come. "An apology. I'm not sure what to do with it." "What does your gut tell you?" she asks, settling into the chair across from my desk. "That apologies don't erase crimes, but they might be the first step toward something resembling peace." I turn to face her. "He stole my inheritance, but he couldn't steal my character. Maybe that's enough." The next morning brings news that changes everything. Detective Lisa Park calls with an update on Marcus's case. "Maya, we've discovered something significant. Your uncle's gambling debts weren't just to casinos. He owed money to some very dangerous people, loan sharks who were threatening his family. The timeline suggests he started stealing from you to pay them off." This revelation doesn't excuse Marcus's crimes, but it provides context I hadn't considered. Fear for his family's safety, while not justifying theft, explains the desperation that led to increasingly bold, fraudulent acts. The picture becomes more complex, though no less criminal. "Does this change anything legally?" I asked Detective Park. "No, the crimes remain the same. But it might explain why he escalated so quickly and why he seemed genuinely panicked when you confronted him. Desperate people make desperate choices." I share this information with Sarah Martinez during our next meeting. "It's interesting context," she agrees, "but it doesn't change the fact that he chose to victimize you rather than seek legitimate help. Military families have resources for financial emergencies. He could have asked for help instead of stealing. The Legal Defense Fund receives its largest donation yet, $50,000 from an anonymous benefactor whose family was helped by our previous cases. The money allows us to expand services, hiring a full-time victim advocate and establishing a 24-hour hotline for military families facing financial crimes. Rosa's Animal Hospital celebrates its first anniversary with a community event, featuring demonstrations of service dog training, educational sessions about animal therapy for PTSD, and a fundraiser for the Legal Defense Fund. The turnout exceeds our expectations, with over 300 people attending throughout the day. During the event, I'm approached by a young woman in Army fatigues. "Sergeant Rodriguez? I'm Private First Class Jennifer Morales. I wanted to thank you for what you've done. My stepfather was stealing my deployment pay, and your legal fund helped me get it back." Stories like Jennifer's remind me why the fight was worth it. Marcus's theft could have been the end of my story, a cautionary tale about family betrayal and broken dreams. Instead, it became the beginning of something larger, a movement to protect military families from financial predators. The second year of the clinic's operation brings new challenges and opportunities. We're selected to participate in a pilot program treating military working dogs with experimental therapies for PTSD and traumatic brain injury. The research could revolutionize care for service animals, giving them better quality of life after their service ends. Rex, our first patient, becomes the unofficial mascot of the clinic. His recovery has been remarkable, from a fearful, anxious dog to a confident therapy animal who helps comfort other traumatized animals during their treatment. His transformation mirrors my own journey from victim to advocate. Elena visits for the clinic's second anniversary celebration, our relationship finally healed from the strain of Marcus's trial. "I owe you an apology," she tells me, as we watch Rex demonstrate his therapy skills with a nervous young German shepherd. "I should have believed you immediately. Family loyalty shouldn't mean protecting criminals." "You were in an impossible position," I reply, meaning it. Marcus spent years building trust with all of us. Recognizing manipulation isn't always easy, especially when it comes from someone you love. The Legal Defense Fund reaches a milestone. We've helped recover over $2 million in stolen assets for military families across the country. Sarah Martinez has been invited to testify before Congress about the need for stronger protections against family financial crimes, using our case as a primary example. "Your willingness to fight back publicly has created a ripple effect," Sarah tells me during a strategy meeting. "Prosecutors are taking these cases more seriously. Banks are implementing better verification procedures, and families are more aware of the warning signs." Marcus completes his parole successfully, moving to a small town in New Mexico where he works for a veteran-owned construction company. His parole officer sends me a final report noting his compliance with all requirements and his completion of financial crimes counseling. Our legal connection is finally severed. I receive one more letter from him. Brief and to the point. "Maya, I know I can never make up for what I did, but I want you to know that I think about the harm I caused every day. I'm grateful that you turned my worst act into something that helps others. You're a better person than I ever was. I won't contact you again, but I'll be following your success from a distance. Thank you for not letting my crimes define you." This time, I don't keep the letter. Some chapters need to be closed completely to allow new ones to begin. The third anniversary of Rosa's Animal Hospital coincides with my acceptance into a doctoral program studying the intersection of animal therapy and human trauma recovery. The research will be funded partly by the clinic's profits and partly by a grant from the Department of Veterans Affairs, recognizing our innovative approach to treating service animals. Dr. Chen has been promoted to chief veterinarian, allowing me to focus on research while maintaining oversight of the clinic's operations. The staff has grown to include 4 veterinarians, 3 veterinary technicians, 2 therapy coordinators, and a full-time administrator. What started as my grandmother's dream has become a thriving community resource. The Legal Defense Fund has evolved into a full non-profit organization, the Rosa Rodriguez Foundation for Military Family Protection. We now offer not just legal assistance, but financial counseling, identity theft prevention education, and support groups for families affected by financial crimes. Standing in the clinic's main treatment room on a quiet Sunday evening, I'm struck by how far I've traveled from that snowy morning in the bank when I first learned of Marcus's betrayal. The pain of that discovery has transformed into purpose, the anger into action, the victim into an advocate. Rex approaches me, his tail wagging gently, and places his head against my leg in the gesture of comfort he's learned to offer. I scratch behind his ears, marveling at how we've both learned to trust again, to find purpose in our pain, to help others heal from similar wounds. My phone buzzes with a text from a military spouse in Texas. The foundation helped us recover $30,000 stolen by my husband's brother. We can't thank you enough. Messages like this arrive weekly now, reminders that Marcus's betrayal, while devastating at the time, has led to protection for hundreds of other families. The trust fund my grandmother established has grown beyond her wildest dreams, not just in monetary value, but in impact. The money she saved to secure my future has secured the futures of countless military families, protected them from predators, and provided resources for recovery when crimes do occur. As I lock up the clinic and head home to my small house near the mountains, I think about the conversation I had with my grandmother the week before she died. "Mija," she had said, her voice weak but determined, "this money isn't just for you. It's for the good you'll do with it, the people you'll help, the dreams you'll make possible." She couldn't have known that her trust fund would be stolen, that her granddaughter would have to fight for justice, that the money would eventually fund a movement to protect other families. But somehow her words prove prophetic. The good I've done with her money extends far beyond what either of us imagined. The snow begins to fall as I drive through Denver's quiet streets, covering the city in fresh white that makes everything look clean and new. But I no longer see it as hiding ugly truths. Instead, I see it as proof that even after the darkest storms, beauty can emerge, that winter always gives way to spring, that endings can become beginnings. Marcus's theft was meant to destroy my future. Instead, it revealed my strength, clarified my purpose, and led to a life of meaning I might never have discovered otherwise. The trust fund he stole temporarily has been restored with interest, but more importantly, the trust he broke has been rebuilt stronger than before. Some betrayals are so profound, they change everything. Marcus's crimes changed me from a naive young veteran into a fierce advocate for justice. They changed my family from one that protected secrets to one that demands accountability. They changed my community's understanding of financial crimes and their impact on military families. The veterinary degree hanging on my office wall represents more than professional achievement. It represents the triumph of my grandmother's dreams over Marcus's greed, the victory of justice over family loyalty misplaced, the transformation of pain into purpose. Tonight, as I prepare for sleep in the house I bought with money from the restored trust fund, I think about the young woman who sat in that bank lobby 3 years ago, learning that her uncle had stolen her future. She couldn't have imagined that the theft would lead to this: a thriving clinic, a foundation protecting hundreds of families, a life of meaning built on the ashes of betrayal. The trust fund my grandmother left me was never just about money. It was about believing in potential, about providing security for dreams, about love that transcends death and theft and time. Marcus stole the money temporarily, but he could never steal what it represented: a grandmother's faith in her granddaughter's ability to overcome any obstacle. That faith, tested by betrayal and strengthened by justice, now protects not just my future, but the futures of military families across the country. From the ashes of Marcus's theft, something larger and more meaningful has grown, proving that even the deepest betrayals can lead to unexpected victories. The war I fought overseas prepared me for the battle I faced at home. Both required courage, strategy, and the willingness to stand up to those who would harm the innocent. Both taught me that justice, though sometimes delayed, is always worth fighting for. In the end, Marcus's challenge to prove it became the foundation of his downfall and my triumph. I proved it in court, with evidence and witnesses and the full weight of the law. I proved that family loyalty has limits, that love doesn't excuse crime, that trust, once broken, must be earned back through actions, not words. But more than that, I proved that victims can become victors, that stolen dreams can be rebuilt stronger than before, that one person's courage to fight back can protect countless others from similar harm. The trust fund my grandmother left me has become her greatest legacy, not just the money she saved, but the justice it helped secure, the protection it now provides, and the proof it offers that love, once given freely, can never truly be stolen. As sleep comes, I'm grateful for the journey that brought me here, even its darkest moments. Marcus's betrayal taught me that family isn't defined by blood, but by loyalty, that trust must be earned and maintained, that justice sometimes requires choosing difficult truths over comfortable lies. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new families to help, new animals to heal. But tonight, I rest in the security my grandmother's love provided, protected by the justice her trust fund made possible, surrounded by the community her dreams helped create. The snow continues to fall outside my window, covering Denver in fresh possibility. And somewhere in that quiet city, other families sleep safely because one young veteran refused to let betrayal define her future, chose justice over false peace, and proved that even the deepest wounds can heal when we have the courage to fight for what's right. The Foundation's 4th year brings unexpected recognition when we're featured in a documentary about military families overcoming financial crimes. The filmmaker Rebecca Torres spent 6 months following our work, interviewing families we've helped, and documenting the ongoing impact of the Legal Defense Fund. Your story represents something larger than individual recovery, Rebecca tells me during the final interview. It's about how one person's refusal to accept injustice can create systemic change. The documentary, titled Stolen Trust: A Military Family's Fight for Justice, premieres at the Denver Film Festival to a standing ovation. The media attention brings both opportunities and challenges. Requests for interviews pour in from national news outlets, military publications, and legal journals. While the exposure helps raise awareness about family financial crimes, it also attracts unwanted attention from those who question my motives or suggest I'm exploiting my uncle's mistakes for personal gain. One particularly harsh online comment reads, "She destroyed her own family over money. What kind of person sends their uncle to prison?" The criticism stings, but it also reinforces why our work matters. Too many people still believe that family loyalty should protect criminals from consequences. Dr. Chen helps me navigate the media storm with characteristic wisdom. "Remember why you started this fight," she reminds me during a particularly difficult week. "It wasn't for fame or recognition. It was for justice and protection of others. Stay focused on that mission." The Rosa Rodriguez Foundation receives its largest challenge yet when we're contacted by the family of Marine Corporal James Mitchell, whose father-in-law has stolen over $200,000 from multiple military families through an elaborate investment scheme. The case involves victims across 4 states and requires coordination with federal investigators. "This is bigger than anything we've handled before," Sarah Martinez warns during our emergency strategy meeting. The perpetrator has connections to organized crime, and some of the victims are afraid to come forward due to threats. Despite the risks, we agree to take the case. The parallels to my own situation are too strong to ignore. A trusted family member exploiting military deployment to commit financial crimes. Victims isolated and vulnerable. A pattern of abuse spanning years. The investigation reveals that Robert Kellerman, James's father-in-law, has been running a Ponzi scheme disguised as a military family investment club. He specifically targeted families with deployed service members, knowing they couldn't easily monitor their investments or attend meetings where red flags might be noticed. He studied your case, FBI agent Patricia Vance tells me during a briefing. Kellerman learned from your uncle's mistakes. He created more sophisticated documentation, established fake references, and built a network of accomplices to provide credibility. The realization that Marcus's crimes have inspired more sophisticated predators is deeply disturbing, but it also validates our decision to pursue public prosecution rather than private settlement. Secrecy protects criminals. Exposure helps potential victims recognize warning signs. Working with federal investigators requires a level of coordination I haven't experienced since military operations. Evidence must be gathered across multiple jurisdictions. Witnesses need protection from intimidation, and financial records span dozens of institutions. The complexity makes my uncle's relatively simple theft seem almost quaint by comparison. James Mitchell visits the clinic during the investigation, bringing his military working dog, Sergeant, for treatment of injuries sustained in an IED explosion. As I examine the Belgian Malinois, James shares his family's story. My wife trusted her father completely, he explains, his voice tight with anger and pain. While I was deployed to Syria, he convinced her to invest our entire savings in his guaranteed military family fund. We lost everything. Our house down payment, our kids' college funds, even the money we'd saved for my transition out of the military. Sergeant's injuries mirror his handler's emotional trauma. Both are healing from wounds inflicted by explosions, though James's blast came from betrayal rather than enemy action. The parallel isn't lost on either of us as we work together on Sergeant's rehabilitation plan. The Kellerman case takes 18 months to build, involving testimony from 43 victims and financial evidence spanning 5 years. The trial becomes a media sensation, with coverage focusing on the vulnerability of military families to financial predators who exploit their service and sacrifice. During my testimony, I'm asked to explain how my uncle's case relates to this larger pattern of abuse. Financial predators study successful prosecutions to improve their methods, I tell the court. They learn from each other's mistakes, develop more sophisticated schemes, and target the same vulnerable populations. That's why public prosecution and education are essential. Secrecy only helps criminals evolve. Kellerman's defense team attempts to discredit me by suggesting I'm seeking publicity and financial gain from my advocacy work. Their cross-examination is aggressive, designed to make me appear vindictive and opportunistic. Ms. Rodriguez, isn't it true that you've profited significantly from your uncle's crimes through book deals, speaking fees, and foundation donations? The defense attorney asks, his tone accusatory. Every dollar I've earned from speaking about this case has gone directly to the foundation, I reply calmly. The goal isn't personal profit. It's preventing other families from experiencing what mine did. The jury convicts Kellerman on all counts, and he receives a 15-year federal sentence. The judge's comments during sentencing reference my case specifically. The courage shown by victims like Sergeant Rodriguez in pursuing public prosecution has been instrumental in exposing the scope of these crimes and protecting other military families. The victory feels different from my uncle's conviction, larger in scope but somehow less personal. Marcus's betrayal cut deep because of our family relationship. Kellerman's crimes anger me because of their calculated cruelty toward people who've sacrificed for their country. Recovery of assets in the Kellerman case proves more complex than my uncle's theft. The money has been dispersed through multiple shell companies and offshore accounts, requiring international cooperation to trace and recover. Some victims receive full restitution, others only partial recovery, and a few lose everything despite the conviction. The uneven outcomes highlight a harsh reality about financial crimes. Justice and full recovery aren't always the same thing. Legal victory doesn't guarantee financial restoration, and some wounds can't be healed by court decisions alone. This lesson becomes central to the Foundation's evolution. We expand services beyond legal assistance to include financial counseling, career transition support, and long-term case management for families whose recovery extends beyond court proceedings. The 5th anniversary of my uncle's arrest coincides with the opening of our second clinic location, this one in Colorado Springs near several military installations. The expansion allows us to serve more military working dogs and their handlers while providing additional training, opportunities for veterinary students interested in trauma rehabilitation. Dr. Chen leads the new facility while I focus on research and foundation work. Our published studies on animal-assisted therapy for military families affected by financial crimes have attracted attention from the Department of Veterans Affairs, leading to a pilot program at 3 VA medical centers. The research reveals fascinating connections between animal therapy and recovery from betrayal trauma. Military families who've experienced financial crimes often struggle with trust issues that extend beyond human relationships. Working with therapy animals provides a safe space to rebuild confidence in their ability to form healthy bonds. Rex, now 7 years old and officially retired from therapy work, spends his days as a beloved clinic mascot and occasional research subject. His transformation from traumatized military dog to confident therapy animal continues to inspire both staff and clients. Sometimes I think he understands more about recovery than any of us. The Foundation's success attracts attention from other advocacy organizations, leading to partnerships with groups focused on elder abuse, domestic violence, and consumer protection. The connections reveal how financial crimes often intersect with other forms of abuse, requiring coordinated responses from multiple agencies. 1. Partnership proves particularly meaningful. Working with the National Military Family Association to develop educational materials about financial crime prevention. The resources we create are distributed to military families worldwide, reaching audiences we could never serve directly. Through the Foundation, my doctoral research culminates in a dissertation examining the long-term psychological effects of family financial crimes on military personnel. The study follows 50 families over 3 years, documenting their recovery processes and identifying factors that promote resilience versus those that hinder healing. The findings challenge conventional wisdom about family loyalty and forgiveness. Families who pursue legal action against perpetrators show better long-term outcomes than those who handle crimes privately. Public accountability, rather than damaging family relationships, actually promotes healthier boundaries and more authentic connections. Your research provides scientific validation for what we've observed anecdotally, Dr. Patricia Williams, my dissertation advisor, notes during my defense. The data clearly shows that enabling criminal behavior in the name of family unity actually perpetuates trauma rather than healing it. The dissertation defense takes place exactly 6 years after that snowy morning when I first learned of Marcus's theft. The timing feels symbolic, a full circle from victim to advocate to researcher, from personal pain to professional expertise. During the defense, I'm asked about the emotional toll of studying trauma while living with its effects. Research has been therapeutic, I explain. Understanding the broader patterns helps me see my own experience as part of a larger phenomenon rather than a personal failing or unique tragedy. The degree opens new opportunities for impact. I'm invited to join the faculty at Colorado State University as an assistant professor, splitting time between teaching, research, and foundation work. The position allows me to train the next generation of veterinarians while continuing advocacy for military families. My first graduate student, Captain Maria Santos, is a military veterinarian studying the effects of financial stress on military working dog performance. Her research builds on our foundation's work, examining how family financial crimes affect not just service members, but their animal partners as well. Financial stress creates a cascade of effects, Maria explains during her thesis proposal. When handlers are distracted by family betrayal or legal proceedings, their dogs sense the emotional disturbance. Performance suffers, bonds weaken, and both human and animal partners become more vulnerable to injury. The research has practical implications for military readiness and animal welfare. Understanding these connections helps commanders recognize when family financial problems might affect unit performance and provides justification for stronger support systems. The Foundation's 7th year brings a milestone. I never expected Marcus contacts us through his attorney, requesting a meeting to discuss making amends. He's completed his parole, found stable employment, and wants to contribute to the Foundation's work as a form of restitution beyond the court-ordered payments. Sarah Martinez and I debate whether to accept the meeting. He's legally satisfied his obligations, Sarah points out. Any additional contact is your choice, not a legal requirement. The decision weighs heavily on me for weeks. Part of me wants to maintain the clean separation we've established, to keep Marcus in the past where his crimes belong. But another part recognizes that his perspective might be valuable for prevention education. We agree to a supervised meeting at Sarah's office with clear boundaries about the purpose and scope of discussion. Marcus arrives looking older than his 62 years, his hair completely gray and his face marked by lines that weren't there during the trial. "Maya," he says quietly, "I know I have no right to ask for your time, but I want to help prevent other families from going through what ours did." His proposal is straightforward. He wants to speak at Foundation events about the mindset that leads to family financial crimes, to help potential perpetrators recognize warning signs in their own behavior before they cross legal lines. "I've spent 6 years thinking about what led me to steal from you," he continues. "The gambling addiction, the pride that prevented me from asking for help, the way I justified each theft as temporary. If sharing that story can stop even one person from making the same choices, maybe some good can come from the harm I caused. The offer surprises me with its apparent sincerity, but I'm cautious about his motives. What do you get out of this, Marcus?" "What's in it for you?" "Peace," he answers simply. "The chance to contribute something positive instead of just taking. I can't undo what I did, but maybe I can prevent it from happening to other families." After extensive discussion with the Foundation Board, we agreed to a trial period. Marcus will participate in 3 educational events, sharing his story under strict guidelines and supervision. If the sessions prove valuable and he demonstrates genuine commitment, we'll consider a longer-term arrangement. The first session takes place at Fort Carson, with an audience of military families and financial counselors. Marcus's presentation is raw and honest, detailing the progression from financial stress to criminal behavior without excusing his choices. I told myself I was borrowing, not stealing, he explains to the silent audience. I convinced myself that Maya would never know, that I'd pay it back before she returned from deployment. But each theft made the next one easier to justify. The lies became a habit, then a lifestyle. The questions from the audience are pointed and sometimes hostile. One spouse asks, "How do we trust family members who might be thinking the same thoughts you had?" Marcus's answer is thoughtful. You don't ignore red flags because someone is family. Financial secrecy, pressure for quick decisions, requests for access to accounts or documents, these are warning signs regardless of who's asking. Trust should be earned and verified, not given blindly. The feedback from attendees is overwhelmingly positive. Many comment that hearing from someone who's actually committed these crimes provides insights that victim stories alone cannot offer. The perspective of a reformed perpetrator adds a dimension to our prevention education that we hadn't previously considered. Over the following months, Marcus participates in additional sessions across Colorado and neighboring states. His presentations evolve and improve, becoming more effective at reaching potential perpetrators while remaining respectful to victims and their families. The relationship between us remains carefully professional. We don't discuss personal matters or attempt to rebuild a family connection. The focus stays strictly on prevention education and the Foundation's mission. Some wounds heal, but some boundaries should remain permanent. Elena expresses mixed feelings about Marcus's involvement with the Foundation. I'm glad he's trying to make amends, she tells me during one of our monthly dinners. But it feels strange seeing him work with you after everything that happened. It's not about forgiveness or family reconciliation, I explain. It's about using his experience to protect other families. If his story prevents even one theft, it's worth the discomfort. The Foundation's 8th year brings recognition from the Department of Defense, which awards us a contract to develop financial crime prevention training for all military branches. The curriculum will reach hundreds of thousands of service members and their families, potentially preventing countless crimes before they occur. Developing the training requires collaboration with military legal experts, financial counselors, and law enforcement specialists. The final product includes video testimonials from victims, presentations by reformed perpetrators like Marcus, and interactive scenarios that help families recognize and respond to warning signs. The training launches simultaneously across all military installations worldwide, representing the largest financial crime prevention initiative in military history. The reach extends far beyond what I could have imagined when I first sat in that bank lobby. Learning of my uncle's betrayal, Dr. Chen and I publish a comprehensive study on the effectiveness of our animal-assisted therapy programs for families affected by financial crimes. The research shows significant improvements in trust building, emotional regulation, and family communication among participants who work with therapy animals during their recovery process. The study attracts international attention, leading to invitations to present our findings at conferences in Australia, the United Kingdom, and Germany. The global interest demonstrates that family financial crimes are a universal problem requiring innovative solutions. During a presentation at the International Conference on Military Family Welfare in London, I'm approached by Dr. James MacLeod, a Scottish researcher studying financial abuse in military families. Your model of combining legal advocacy, therapy services, and prevention education is exactly what we need in the UK, he tells me. Would you consider consulting on a similar program here? The conversation leads to a partnership that expands our model internationally. Within 2 years, Rosa Rodriguez Foundation affiliates operate in 4 countries, adapting our approaches to different legal systems and cultural contexts while maintaining core principles of victim advocacy and perpetrator accountability. The international expansion requires careful attention to cultural differences in family dynamics and legal systems. What works in the American military context may not translate directly to other cultures, requiring local adaptation while preserving essential elements. Working with international partners teaches me that family financial crimes transcend cultural boundaries. The tactics may vary, but the fundamental dynamics, exploitation of trust, targeting of vulnerable family members, use of family loyalty to silence victims, remain consistent across cultures. The Foundation's 9th year coincides with my promotion to associate professor and the publication of my book, Betrayed Trust: How Military Families Can Protect Themselves from Financial Predators. The book combines personal narrative with research findings and practical guidance, reaching audiences beyond our direct service area. Book sales generate additional funding for the Foundation while raising awareness about family financial crimes. The speaking engagements that follow publication allow me to share our message with diverse audiences: military families, financial professionals, law enforcement, and advocacy organizations. One speaking engagement proves particularly meaningful, addressing the graduating class at the Army's Financial Management School. These officers will be responsible for helping soldiers manage their finances and recognize signs of financial abuse. Your role extends beyond basic financial literacy, I tell the graduates. You're often the first line of defense against financial predators who target military families. The knowledge you share and the vigilance you maintain can prevent the kind of devastation my family experienced. The Foundation's 10th anniversary celebration takes place at the original Rosa's Animal Hospital, now expanded to include a training center for therapy animals and a research laboratory studying animal-human bonding in trauma recovery. The event draws over 500 attendees, including families we've helped, military leaders, and advocates from across the country. During my remarks, I reflect on the journey from that snowy morning in the bank to this moment of celebration and community. 10 years ago, I thought my uncle's theft had destroyed my future, I tell the gathering. I couldn't have imagined that his betrayal would lead to a movement that's protected thousands of families and changed how we think about financial crimes. The anniversary also marks the completion of our most ambitious research project, a longitudinal study following 200 military families affected by financial crimes over a 5-year period. The findings provide unprecedented insights into recovery patterns and the factors that promote resilience versus those that perpetuate trauma. The research confirms what we've observed through our direct service work. Families who pursue legal action and receive comprehensive support services show better long-term outcomes than those who handle crimes privately or receive limited assistance. The data provides scientific validation for our advocacy approach. Rex, now 10 years old and showing signs of age, remains a beloved presence at the clinic, though he's fully retired from active therapy work. His story has become legendary among staff and clients. The traumatized military dog who became a healer, whose recovery paralleled and inspired my own journey from victim to advocate. Watching Rex sleep peacefully in his favorite sunny spot by the clinic's front window, I'm struck by how much we've both changed since those early days of fear and uncertainty. His transformation from anxious, damaged animal to confident therapy dog mirrors my own evolution from betrayed victim to empowered advocate. The Foundation's work continues to evolve, adapting to new forms of financial crime and changing military family needs. Cybercrime targeting military families has increased dramatically, requiring new prevention strategies and response protocols. The fundamental mission remains the same, but the tactics must constantly adapt. Looking ahead, I see endless opportunities for growth and impact. The Foundation's model has proven effective across cultures and contexts, suggesting potential for even broader application. The research we've conducted provides a foundation for evidence-based advocacy that can influence policy at national and international levels. But beyond the statistics and program outcomes, the work remains deeply personal. Every family we help represents a victory over the kind of betrayal that once threatened to destroy my own future. Every perpetrator held accountable sends a message that family loyalty cannot excuse criminal behavior. The trust fund my grandmother established has grown far beyond her original vision, not just in monetary value but in impact and meaning. The money she saved to secure my future has secured the futures of thousands of military families, protected them from predators, and provided resources for recovery when crimes do occur. As I prepare for sleep in the house I bought with money from the restored trust fund, I think about the conversation I had with my grandmother the week before she died. Her words about the money being for the good I would do with it have proven more prophetic than either of us could have imagined. The snow begins to fall outside my window, covering Denver in fresh possibility. Somewhere in that quiet city, military families sleep safely because one young veteran refused to let betrayal define her future, chose justice over false peace, and proved that even the deepest wounds can heal when we have the courage to fight for what's right. The journey from victim to advocate has been long and sometimes painful, but it has led to a life of meaning and purpose I never could have imagined. Marcus's theft was meant to destroy my future. Instead, it revealed my strength, clarified my mission, and led to a legacy that will protect military families for generations to come. The trust fund my grandmother left me was never just about money. It was about believing in potential, about providing security for dreams, about love that transcends death and theft and time. That love, tested by betrayal and strengthened by justice, now protects not just my future, but the futures of countless others who serve our country with honor and deserve protection in return.